Welcome to another episode of Screenwriting Uncut. In this video, I want to talk about the real secret to the screenwriting deal, something that I call alignment. Now, this was originally going to be episode number 3 of the Producer's Perspective series, where I write it out very carefully, I cut it very tight, I create animation and graphics and all that sort of thing. But as the year has worn on, I've come to realize that those videos are incredibly time consuming and I just haven't had a chance to put it together. So rather than sort of leave that teaser out there, I wanted to address it in this episode. The real secret to the screenwriting deal is alignment. This is something that I've personally discovered that I never saw written about or talked about anywhere before, and I only discovered it when I started to reverse engineer that process and realized that it's one thing to write and finish a screenplay, but ultimately you need to get that screenplay into the producer's hands, and it's the vast majority of the time you're going to create something that they don't want or can't use, or that's not in sync, aligned with their needs and their objectives. The sort of clearest example that I have, most obvious example, is you would never try to sell a horror film to Disney, right? Why? Because it's just not aligned with what they do. Ultimately, to make a deal, to get a yes, to find a producer who's going to actually turn your idea into a story, you need to firstly create an extraordinary screenplay, but then secondly, get it into their hands. And then thirdly, finally, most importantly, you need to be aligned with not just their business needs, not just their creative ambitions, but literally where they are at this exact moment in time. Now, the problem is that seems like it requires an ungodly amount of luck, right? I mean, to be lucky enough to be in the right place at the right time, in the right moment, with the right project, that just sounds impossible to achieve, doesn't it? Well, what I've realized as I developed this process and figured out that when you complete your screenplay and you're ready to take it to a producer, you can actually develop the skill of alignment. You can actually take what you have and adapt it to something that they need. I'll give you an example. Let's say that you've written an extraordinary romantic comedy. It's great rom-com, and it's got sort of an early 20s male lead, and that's your story. But you get it into the hands of a producer who maybe has access to an A-list actress that's in her late 30s, early 40s. Well, the question is, can you adapt your project so that it still achieves what you wanted it to achieve, but it's also now able to take advantage of the resources that they might have access to? That's the art of alignment. So it's not about writing something that the producer wants. It's not about trying to anticipate what they need. People often hear this concept of alignment and think, well, you're telling me that I have to write for them, and I want to write for me. And that's all well and good, but you need to write for both of you. The key is to create material that is both what you want it to be and what they need it to be. So how do we develop the skill of alignment? And I've realized that there's a very simple way to do that, and that is through the notes and feedback part of the process. Once you have your screenplay completed and you send it out into the world, everyone is going to have an opinion. Everyone is going to tell you what they thought of your project. People won't like this or won't like that. Other people will like the thing the other person didn't like. So the question becomes, how do you know which advice, which notes, which feedback to use? How do you then know how to deal with that feedback? Now, in the alignment phase of fast screenplay, we go through a process where you learn how to get notes that are more effective. You learn how to decipher those notes and interpret what they're actually trying to say. Maybe someone says they hate this line of dialogue on this page, but it's not actually the line of dialogue they hate. Maybe what they really hate is the way the character behaves toward another character. So if you just change the line of dialogue, you may not be addressing the underlying problem that's causing the note. So you need to learn how to get notes and interpret notes and apply notes and align your project to notes. Now, the reality is, since everyone has an opinion, and a lot of those opinions are going to disagree. I mean, take a look at IMDb, for example. Your favorite film on IMDb, I guarantee you there's someone there that absolutely hates it, shreds it, right? And a film that you thought was horrible, awful, somebody on there loves that film. So we're all going to have different opinions. So when you deal with notes and feedback, when you put your work out there to get notes, to try to align with notes, it's not about changing your work for what they need. It's about understanding what they're getting out of your story, out of your screenplay. So if you get a whole bunch of notes about a character, well, then it means everyone's reading this character in a way that might be different to what you're intending. So the value and benefit of notes and feedback is not in the notes and feedback itself necessarily. It's in understanding what people are getting from what you've written. So alignment then takes that idea to the next step and says, okay, well, I can change and adapt and tweak my script to serve what I want it to be, while also taking into consideration the thing that they want or need it to be. Now, by developing this skill, by getting really good at not being defensive about notes and feedback, there's no reason to be defensive about notes or feedback. If somebody hates your script, or they hate your characters, they hate your dialogue, it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. At the end of the day, the question is, have you been effective in expressing what you're trying to say, in telling the story that you're trying to tell? So if you get good at developing at the ability to align your material to the needs and the goals of the producers and the production companies, you will then align your work in such a way that you've created something that you want to create, to say, and something that they actually need. So the real secret to the screenwriting deal ultimately is alignment. You're never going to see your story sell or get made into a film unless a producer or someone out there says, yes, I want to make this. It's not just about selling it, running away with the cash. It's about creating something that they want to make. And in order for them to want to make it, in order for me to want to make a project, it has to be in sync. It has to be aligned with my creative ambitions, with my needs, with what I'm trying to do in my career. So for anyone you try to contact, anyone you reach out to, always remember that the notes and feedback are their opinion, which is coming from what they want and what they need. If you can develop the skill of aligning with that, then when you find and connect with your ideal producer, you'll be able to align with their needs and make the deal. Hopefully this has been helpful and inspiring to you. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.